7 major gun law changes are taking effect across America in 2026, and if you carry concealed, at least 3 of these will directly impact your permit, your rights, or your legal liability. And here's what nobody is talking about. Some of these changes are already affecting you right now, even if your state hasn't implemented them yet. Before we dive in, I need you to subscribe immediately. Why? Because gun law changes happen at the state level, they happen quietly, and by the time most people find out about them, they're already breaking laws they didn't know existed. Click that subscribe button because this information could save you from accidentally becoming a felon. Here's the mistake that's putting thousands of concealed carriers at risk in 2026. They assume their permit protects them the same way it did last year. They think if something was legal when they got their license, it stays legal until renewal time. They believe their training from 3 years ago covers today's legal requirements. That thinking will destroy your freedom faster than any other misconception about concealed carry law. Let me explain what's really happening. The legal landscape for concealed carry is changing rapidly, and those changes are creating a complex patchwork of laws that vary not just by state, but sometimes by county, city, and even specific locations within the same municipality. Your concealed carry permit is not a magic shield that protects you everywhere you go. It's a legal document that grants you specific privileges under specific conditions that can change without you ever being notified. And in 2026, those conditions are changing in ways that could turn law-abiding carriers into accidental criminals. Here are the 7 changes you need to understand, and I'm going to explain exactly how each one affects your daily carry decisions. Change number 1, reciprocity restrictions are tightening. In 2025, 42 states had some form of concealed carry reciprocity with other states. That number is dropping in 2026. States like Colorado, Washington, and Oregon are implementing stricter standards for recognizing out-of-state permits. Here's what this means practically. If you have a Utah permit because it was recognized in 30 states, that recognition is shrinking. If you travel for work and rely on multi-state recognition, your legal carry area just got smaller. If you live near a state border and regularly cross for shopping or business, you might now be committing a felony without knowing it. The legal framework here is straightforward. States have no obligation to recognize other states' carry permits. Reciprocity is a courtesy, not a constitutional requirement. When a state withdraws reciprocity, your permit becomes worthless the moment you cross that state line. Change number 2. Training requirements are becoming more complex and more expensive. Several states are implementing continuing education requirements for permit renewal. Instead of renewing every 5 years with a simple background check, you'll now need to complete additional training courses. California, New York, and Illinois are leading this trend, but it's spreading. The requirements aren't just more hours of training. They're specific types of training that must be completed by certified instructors using approved curricula. Here's the trap. If your permit expires while you're trying to complete the new training requirements, you're no longer legal to carry. And in some states, letting your permit lapse means you have to start the entire application process over, including waiting periods that can stretch for months. Change number 3. Storage requirements are expanding beyond your home. Traditional gun storage laws apply to firearms kept in your residence, especially when children might access them. The new laws in several states extend storage requirements to vehicles, workplaces, and temporary lodging. Massachusetts and Connecticut are implementing laws that require locked storage in vehicles, even for permit holders. If you leave your gun in your car while you go into a store, it must be in a locked container, separate from ammunition. The definition of adequate storage is specific and unforgiving. Violating these storage requirements isn't just a civil matter. It's often a criminal charge that can cost you your permit permanently. Change number 4. Prohibited locations are expanding, and the definitions are becoming more specific. We're not just talking about schools and government buildings anymore. The new prohibited locations include transit facilities, including bus stops and train platforms, medical facilities, including private doctors' offices and urgent care centers, entertainment venues, including movie theaters, concerts, and sporting events, commercial areas, including shopping malls and large retail stores. But here's what makes this dangerous. The boundaries of these prohibited zones are often unclear, and signage requirements vary by state. You might legally park your car outside a prohibited zone, but if you walk through that zone while carrying, you've committed a crime even if you never enter a building. Change number 5. Permit data is becoming more accessible to law enforcement and other agencies. Several states are implementing systems that allow real-time permit verification during traffic stops, background checks, and other encounters. This sounds convenient, but it creates new legal vulnerabilities. If your permit status changes for any reason, a missed renewal, a change of address you forgot to report, a disqualifying event you weren't aware of, that information is immediately available to any officer who runs your information. The practical impact? You could be arrested for carrying with an invalid permit, even if you believed your permit was current and valid. Change number 6. Mental health reporting requirements are expanding, and the definitions of disqualifying conditions are broadening. Federal law already prohibits gun ownership for people who have been adjudicated as mentally defective or committed to a mental institution. But states are now implementing laws that expand these categories to include voluntary mental health treatment, certain prescriptions, and even some forms of counseling. The key word is reporting. Information that was previously private is now being shared with permit authorities. If you've ever received mental health treatment, taken medication for anxiety or depression, or been involved in any kind of psychological evaluation, your permit status could be affected by these new reporting requirements. Change number 7. Permit suspension and revocation procedures are becoming more aggressive. Instead of waiting for permit renewal to address potential disqualifications, many states are implementing continuous monitoring systems that can suspend or revoke permits immediately based on new information. This includes arrests that don't lead to convictions, civil court orders, complaints from family members, and even social media activity that authorities interpret as threatening or concerning. The legal standard for permit revocation is often lower than the standard for criminal conviction. You can lose your permit based on a preponderance of evidence rather than beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, here's what the law does not protect you from, and this is critical. The law doesn't protect you from ignorance. If a law changes and you don't know about it, you're still subject to the penalties for violating it. The legal system operates on the principle that ignorance of the law is no excuse. The law doesn't protect you from technical violations. If your permit expires on Tuesday and you carry on Wednesday, the fact that you intended to renew it doesn't matter. You're carrying without a valid permit, which is typically a felony. The law doesn't protect you from administrative errors. If the state fails to send you a renewal notice, if your address change wasn't properly processed, if there's a computer glitch that shows your permit is invalid, you're still responsible for maintaining valid authorization to carry. The law doesn't protect you from retroactive changes. If you're traveling and a law changes while you're in transit, you could arrive at your destination as a criminal, even though you were legal when you left home. And most importantly, the law doesn't protect you from the consequences of carrying in prohibited areas, even if you didn't know they were prohibited. The burden is on you to know where you can and cannot legally carry. Here's the safe boundary principle for navigating these changes. Assume less, verify more, and document everything. Assume less means don't assume your permit works the same way it did last year. Don't assume reciprocity still exists with states where it existed before. Don't assume training you completed years ago still meets current requirements. Verify more means check current laws before you travel. Confirm your permit status regularly, not just at renewal time. Verify reciprocity agreements before crossing state lines. Check prohibited location lists before entering unfamiliar areas. Document everything means keep records of your training, your renewals, your address changes, and your compliance with storage requirements. If your permit status is ever questioned, documentation is your first line of defense. But even perfect compliance with these principles doesn't guarantee protection. The legal landscape is changing so rapidly that new requirements can take effect between the time you verify current law and the time you actually travel or carry. Here's what this means for your daily carry decisions. You need to reassess your carry habits, your travel plans, and your legal compliance on a regular basis. What was legal and safe last year might be illegal and dangerous this year. If you regularly carry in the same locations, check whether those locations have new restrictions. If you travel frequently, research the laws in your destination states before every trip, not just the first time you visit. If you rely on reciprocity agreements, verify those agreements are still valid before you depend on them. The most dangerous assumption you can make is that gun laws stay the same. They don't. They change constantly, they change without fanfare, and they change in ways that can trap law-abiding people who aren't paying attention. Every one of these 7 changes represents a new way for legal carriers to accidentally become criminals. Storage violations, reciprocity failures, prohibited location violations, permit status problems, any of these can turn a routine day into a life-altering legal nightmare. The legal system doesn't care about your intentions. It doesn't care that you're trying to be law-abiding. It doesn't care that you didn't know the law changed. It cares about what you actually did and whether that conduct was legal under the laws in effect at the time and place you did it. Here's my final warning, and this is the most important thing I'll say in this entire video. The complexity of concealed carry law is increasing faster than most people can keep up with. What we're seeing in 2026 is just the beginning of a trend toward more restrictions, more requirements, and more opportunities for legal mistakes. Every new law creates new compliance burdens. Every new requirement creates new ways to violate the law accidentally. Every new restriction creates new legal landmines that can destroy your life if you step on them. The solution isn't to stop carrying. The solution is to become more educated, more careful, and more proactive about legal compliance. You need to treat concealed carry law like a professional responsibility, not a hobby interest. Check laws regularly. Verify your permit status frequently. Stay informed about changes in the states where you travel. Document your compliance with all requirements. And most importantly, understand that carrying a concealed weapon is a legal responsibility that requires ongoing attention and continuous education. These 7 changes aren't just policy updates. They're new legal realities that affect every person who carries concealed in America. Some of them might not affect you personally, but all of them affect the legal environment you're operating in. The stakes couldn't be higher. A concealed carry violation isn't just a ticket or a fine. It's typically a felony charge that can cost you your permit permanently, your right to own firearms permanently, and your freedom for years. Stay informed, stay compliant, and stay safe. Because in 2026, the margin for error is smaller than it's ever been. Remember, this is educational information about legal changes affecting concealed carry permits. This is not legal advice for your specific situation. Gun laws are complex, they vary by jurisdiction, and they change frequently. If you have specific questions about your permit, your legal status, or your compliance with current law, consult with a qualified firearms attorney in your jurisdiction. The law is not forgiving when it comes to gun violations. Know the rules, follow them exactly, and don't assume anything stays the same just because it was true yesterday.